Okay, people. Still no makeup. Still no hairdo. Still a mess. But I just wanted to say something that needed to be said a long, long time ago with my motivation, my inspiration to help others. And in that, I am going to dedicate this Patreon to my sister Kitty and to my brother Gerry. Gerry and Kitty were very close to me growing up. I was 2 years younger than Kitty and 1 year older than Gerry. So out of 9 children, the three consecutive children, sort of in the upper middle part of the family in age, contracted stage 4 cancer, which I think is very unusual. In a family of 9, 3 consecutive kids in a row get cancer. But anyway, it makes me think that something was going on. Either we were exposed to a carcinogen in the air in Pittsburgh, or mom might have been taking a medicine to deal with the issues she was having with miscarriages. So there is a side effect of a medicine that they used in the 50s for that. It was called, the medicine's initials are DES, and so it could be that as well. But I would like to dedicate this channel to my beautiful sister Kitty. I had grown up adoring her and envying everything about her: her long, beautiful brown hair, her gorgeous greenish blue eyes, her aquiline, striking features. She was gorgeous, and I always wanted to be in her shadow, always wanted to be wherever she was. And so when she was first diagnosed, she and I took a trip up to Toronto to see our little sister Sheila, who was making a movie up there, and we wanted to be together and just hang out as sisters and see what Sheila was up to. And it was right around that time where she had had a biopsy, and the doctor told her to come back in 6 months. Well, in 6 months, she was already being told that she needed mastectomy. And that's just what they did. That was something they had been doing for the entire century. It wasn't until another doctor, I think his name was Hoffman, started to experiment in right around the 80s or 90s, and tests were done, clinical trials were done, showing that a lumpectomy with radiation was just as effective as on survival rates as the mastectomy. So there were the more progressive cancer centers were doing more tissue preserving measures, and the surgeons that were in their practice for a long time, they just did the same old, which was, lop those breasts off. So you just have to be so careful. I never would have dreamed there was so much information to know when Kitty was first diagnosed, and then when Gerry was diagnosed. And I absolutely knew nothing about cancer when my Aunt Bo was diagnosed and sick with cancer. I was in college in Washington, D.C., and I'd go visit her And then I got married, and I took my first baby to visit with her. She was absolutely in love with Keller Crawford as a baby, but she did die of December of the year of 1977 when he was just 5 months old. But she did get to enjoy him. But I knew nothing. All I knew from the 70s about cancer was that you get emaciated and bald and sickly, and then you die. That's what my definition of an experience of cancer was. So when Kitty was diagnosed and then had to go through all these treatments, my boss let me go. I was working at a newspaper in Winchester, Virginia, and my boss was very understanding, and I went to be with Kitty for her operation. And it was, you know, it just showed me how important it was to have someone there that you can rely on for moral support, for any little necessities, any needs that you have. Mostly it was about getting through and drying tears and propping her up emotionally and helping her to be strong. And after the operation was over, the doctor came in, and this is when I think back on it and how it was done. The future Mary thinks that doctor didn't know what the hell he was doing, because he said, "Well, I think we need to take the other breast, and maybe we'll have to do that this summer." And then he came back in and said it was scheduled for the next week. So it was like, well, I don't know if I can come back. And actually, I don't remember if I did come back. I do remember when Kitty was in the hospital and taking her. We wanted to see the scar, and we wanted to just face the reality. And she took off the bandage. I took off the bandage, and I drew a picture for her. And I was like, oh, this is just not a big deal. This is beautiful. And so those moments are ingrained in my memory forever. I got to know her fear, and I felt her fear intimately. And so naturally, the fear just evolved and grew, because we never knew what was next. What's next? Radiation and chemotherapy and losing your hair and throwing up and becoming so weak and so thin. Those were, I can't even describe it. Challenging is, I always try to think of a flowery word, a more positive word, but that little girl struggled, and she fought. She was a warrior. She really was. She went through it, and she just, wanted to live for her family. She loved them very, very much. So she survived that, and by 1993, she'd been out and living her life and teaching again and raising her kids. I got a job in Des Moines, Iowa, and I just started the job. That's in August, and I think my mother called me within a week of my first day on the job, saying, "Mary, I want you to be a big girl." uh, okay. Kitty has cancer all through her bones, metastasized all through her bones. And my heart just sank. And I immediately went to my boss and I said, this is what's going on. And so, because I wanted to be available, I just had I just have always had an urge to be with my sister when she needed me. And so I just said to my boss, I will work for everyone's vacation as long as you just give me the time off to go when my sister needs me. And so that's what we did. And she had a bone marrow transplant in 1994. They started preparing her for that in December of 1993. And they zapped her, I think, in February. But they lost almost all of it. Was a clinical trial, and they lost almost all of the patients except for Kitty. And Kitty was a fighter. And she was able to walk from her bed to the bathroom without her walker. And she was probably all of 90 pounds. Her color had turned yellowish green. She was bald. She looked like a little Martian. But she was out of pain, and she was able to walk to the bathroom within a couple days after the bone marrow transplant. And so then she was able to get strong again. She was able to be healthy again. She was able to enjoy her family. And she and Dr. Elena Bloom did follow-up visits. That's what happens when you are diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. It's like you are married to the doctor. Every month you have to go in. And she eventually passed away in 2016 of a inoperable brain hemorrhage and brain bleed. It was heartbreaking to lose her. Gerry's story was a much more short-lived story. His cancer was very, very progressed. For some reason, I think it took them a long, long time to even diagnose him correctly, but I wasn't privy to the records or the doctor's visits. I was living in Nevis at the time. I went to visit him in June, and then I came back in August, and I stayed with him until he passed away in October. I should do a separate video about my feelings about Gerry, especially my feelings about Gerry because I was always his little mother, and I think he felt comfortable with me taking care of him ever since he was a baby, and I just couldn't. I did the best I could within the confines of a conventional standard of care that he was in. I truly believe that when you're that sick, you should not be administered toxic chemotherapy and toxic radiation. You should just be detoxing your body and nourishing your body with juicing and eating. He couldn't eat, but today they have uh, uh, a nutrition that's just made out of pure juice. And instead of the sugar and the chemicals that he was having in his TPN, he could have been having cellular food going in there and knocking the shit out of dead cancer cells. I mean, killing cancer cells and detoxing them. And that's what I wished that, you know, the future Mary would have come back. But I didn't know any better. I didn't know. And I did bring some turkey tail, which is a non-toxic supplement they use a lot in Japan. Thousands of years they've used it. It's a mushroom, PSK, Coriolus versicolor. And, you know, I brought it to the attention of my sister-in-law, and she said, I don't want you to give those to him. And neither one of us really knew. Well, I was told that it was non-toxic, but I didn't really know that it was. But I know now because I take it, and it's wonderful. And I wished that we were able to implement some of the protocols and therapies that I know would have given Gerry a chance at life, at healing, reversing the cancer. So this channel, you know, is dedicated to Gerry and Kitty. And for those of you who did not know them, I will post some photographs of them. Most of my photographs are probably faded down in the basement at my little cottage in Nevis, which I haven't been able to get back to. I left 90% of my life there in 2017 when I came up for my biopsy and my recurrent diagnosis. So I just have to make do with what I have, and I'm very, very grateful for everything, every little thing that I have, and every blessing that you give me. I'm very, very grateful. So I'm sorry this got really long, but I think about Gerry and Kitty every day, every single day.